Welcome to Yesterzine Extra, the literal magazine show's bonus pullout section. If you saw episode 6 of Yesterzine, we covered that CVG issue with the 3 greatest games of all time. Between that and the surprisingly deep story of Motortoon Grand Prix 2, it was a lengthy episode, but still there's at least one more game we should look at, because I played it a lot at the time. So let's go on a little sweep of the cutting room floor and take a shortish, hardish look at Die Hard Trilogy on the PlayStation. Yes, right here we have famous German Christmas movie Die Hard and both of its sequels. It's only sequels. Impressively, each of the 3 Die Hard movies gets its own distinct game in a single package. It recalls the old Ocean Software movie licenses where you get multiple genres in a single movie game, changing each level. The problem there, of course, is that usually at least 2/3 of them were bobbins. CVG only gave this 3 out of 5, which is only 1 out of 5 per game. So despite fond memories of it back in the day, I'm not expecting a huge amount. So with no further fanfare, let's head for Nakatomi. All 3 games are more tributes to the plot than anything that especially follows the movie. Die Hard 1 as a plot doesn't involve that much shooting really. There's only a small number of terrorists and not even that many hostages. A lot of it is one-on-one gunfights. That's not going to work for a game, or at least not for the game Probe were looking to make. So Die Hard 1 takes the terrorists plus hostages plot and turns it into a multi-floor third-person shooter. In each level you need to kill all the bad dudes, rescue all the good dudes, and then get the hell out of the level before the bomb goes off. Which raises some questions. Why can hostages escape by simply walking past the terrorists just because you tapped them on the shoulder and said, "You're it"?
Get the hell out of here! Get the hell out of here! Great!
Why does killing the last bad guy suddenly trigger a bomb countdown? And why can I set off a literal bomb on a floor, strong enough to kill everyone remaining on it, but every other floor in the building is completely untouched? And for that matter, why is it perfectly safe to keep using the lifts during this? Going in guns blazing is not advised. It's really not a good idea to take on more than 1 terrorist at a time if you can help it, because you can't take much damage or do any effective crowd control. Also, when you rescue tap a hostage, then generally more dudes will arrive in from the same elevator you did. So the effective strategy is to at least mostly clear the level, then individually release hostages and deal with the result. It's a more intelligent shooter, which is a pretty good description of the movie too, in fact. Die Hard is difficult. There's a reason most of this footage is from the first parking garage level. There's a few reasons for that. Firstly, the controls. This is pure early 3D game tank controls here. You can strafe, but it's on separate buttons, and it's basically impossible to do so and still face people to do a shootings. Also not helping is the suicidally crappy draw distance. It's like Ian Die Hard has turned up for his scheduled mass shooting and has forgotten to bring his glasses. But this is solid. Fix the draw distance and controls and this would work today. It's a deeper game than it first appears, especially given the segments were apparently written in reverse order, and this could so easily have been the afterthought. Even in 2019 it'll kick your ass, but you won't mind. Die Hard 2 is a light gun shoot-em-up. In 2019 this is going to be an issue. If you're using a real PlayStation, you should know that light guns, for reasons of science, do not work on modern LCD TVs. If you're using an emulator, then of course you're completely boned. As far as I can tell, while some emulators can do Namco's GunCon via the mouse, none of them can do so with the Konami Justifier, which is the only one this game supports. The most popular PlayStation emulator, EPSXE, can emulate the presence of a Justifier, but only via the controller, which this game supports anyway. So a controller it is. Die Hard 2, or Die Harder, is the one with the airport. Ian arrives to meet his wife off the plane, but arrives early and uses the time to kill a terrorist and discover a plot to rescue a drug lord due for extradition. Again, we've ramped up the plot a little from the movie, and there's now terrorists and hostages fricking everywhere. And with a controller, that's just not happening. It's oversensitive and the kind of accuracy you need is impossible, especially as the game, even very early, layers hostages between enemies. There's not a huge penalty for hitting them, which is very welcome, but still you're not getting far into this with a pad. Which is a shame, because it's pretty, and it moves very well with some lovely deformable scenery to shoot when you wildly fire off target through sheer controller frustration. There's some minor issues seeing things in PlayStation screen resolution, but I'm sure with a decent sized screen and a light gun you'd be fine. If I can figure out the whole mouse thing, we'll come back to this, because it could be fun, but with a joypad, we might as well stop right here. Die Hard with a Vengeance, a film that in no way involves bombs in city streets. Die Hard with a Vengeance, a game entirely involving bombs in city streets. This is the most tenuous of the ties to the movie plot. At one point, Samuel L. Jackson takes a break from classing up the movie to dash across the city in a taxi in order to get to a bomb on a train before it goes off. Ian Die Hard takes the train and gets there first, a valuable consumer lesson in New York transportation. The game, however, sees you driving a taxi in order to get to as many bombs as possible before they go off, at tighter and tighter time limits. To defuse the bombs, you drive over them in the taxi, because that's how they do it in the military. At which point the bomb goes off anyway. I have many questions. We can see through this, of course. It's just a way of doing a checkpoint arcade driving game, but one where the checkpoints explode, and we can get right behind that. Originally, the whole game was just going to be this segment. Fox decided quite late on they wanted to commission a trilogy, prompting the speedy development of the other two. A sensible decision, I think, because this would make quite a thin game if it was the only thing on the disc. It was also supposed to include a proper map of New York City, but it quickly became clear that this would be too claustrophobic for a quick driving game. I'm not convinced. Forza and Gran Turismo have both successfully done New York street courses, for example. Formula E has raced there. It becomes pretty clear when you play this why that would be the case though. The car physics are special. The accuracy you can generally have is of an order that means the width of an American street is insufficient. The game tries to help by mapping turn 90 degrees left and right to your triggers. And that works. Sort of. Once I'd played 6 games and had finally taught myself not to try and use them to accelerate anyway. Really, this just appears to have been added in order to make up for the failings of the rest of the physics engine. It's a little difficult to know what Die Harder wants itself to be. It puts up a pretense of being a proper semi-sim driving game in some ways, but then has second thoughts and adds what is essentially a teleport button for the car. It wants to be an open world racer, but the city design basically makes that a choice of which of the 11 identical straight side streets to take if you need to be one avenue over. It seems then it wants to be a proper checkpoint racer, but the map is next to useless and the bomb indicated only by a compass direction. And then it makes the weirdest decision, throwing random citizens onto the streets for you to run over. That's nothing to do with the movies that are licensed whatsoever. McClane was always a cop and would never have done anything like that. It doesn't even seem to have any effect on the game other than the occasional random scream as a body flies over your bonnet. They must have really liked the effect though, because it remains even though it got the whole package banned in Germany. It's hard to know what to think about this one. It's a laugh, there's the basis of a fun little attack game in it, but it needs to decide what it wants to be. Throw a decent Burnout style physics engine on this and some better routing and you'd have something. But if it was good then, and I'm pretty certain I thought it was, then time has been cruel. Never mind the quality, feel the width, as they say. This is another game like Sonic Wings Advance that CVG pretty much gave a nothing review. Other than correctly spotting the hidden depth in Die Hard 1, they barely talk about the other two. And the conclusion is, none of these would work on their own, but it's a good package, 3 out of 5. To be fair, in an issue including Quake, Knights and Mario 64, deadlines were probably on the tight side. These days, that's probably a fair score, and there's really only 1.5 games here unless you somehow have a Konami justifier, a real PlayStation and a CRT TV. If you've got a spare hour and happen to be a fan of Die Hard, like all right thinking people, then I recommend you dig this out and give that first game a go. It sets the scene perfectly immediately with this mini intro of the car arriving at Nakatomi Plaza, and it's cleverer than you give it credit for if you just dived in. 2 you can skip, it's just frustrating with a pad. 3 is probably worth a quick go since you've already got the disc in, but you're quickly going to discover that there are much better options for arcade driving. The original though? I can't really think of another game that tries to do the same thing it does. If I had to grade it, I'd give it a Yippee-Ki-A. There is incidentally a Saturn port of this, but it's very much graphically cut down, so only go with it if you can't get hold of the PlayStation one. Thanks for watching. If you missed episode 6 where we covered the rest of the issue, I'll link it and the whole of season 1 at the end of the video. If you like that, a subscription and a click of the bell will ensure season 2 does not pass you by. If you have anything to say about any of this, the contact details are on the screen now, and you'll find us attempting to remove A Good Day to Die Hard from the timeline. Yippee-Ki-Yay, many friends.